So there we go, we are recording now. Again, welcome, just so the recording knows, this is NCSS's mid-semester info session on a lot of like these dropping, LWD, CR, NCR, all these acronyms that you hear that you might not know what it's about. Can you move on to the next slide? Yes, our first guest is Alex Renee. Alex is the math faculty advisor, and we're really happy to have him here. Alex, do you want to introduce yourself to the first years?
Sure, yeah. Welcome. If you're in Math 223, you might already know me. Like Miriam said, I'm the math faculty advisor. I've been in that role for a couple of years now, and I've been around UTM for a while. I think I first got to U of T in like 2012 and was a postdoc and was at like the different campuses, and then got a more permanent position here at UTM. But that's not that interesting. What is interesting? I have two kids. One is 7, one is 3. You may not be interested in that either. Their names are Miles and Archie. My wife is also a professor at U of T. She's in the philosophy department at Scarborough. So she does ethics. So if you want to be ethical, then you can take a course with her. And yeah, I'd like to do lots of different things. Happy to chat about whatever. And yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Perfect. And our surprise guests, which we're really happy to have them here, are Laura and Yvette. Laura is the new MCS undergrad advisor, and her focus is on math and stats programs. And Yvette is our CS undergrad advisor. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to meet you virtually. Some of you have already been in touch with me via email, but I'm Laura Ferlito, and I'm the +1, so the Yvette's colleague as another academic advisor in the MCS department, and my focus is on math and stats inquiries. So I look forward to talking to you via email, or if you need any more in-depth assistance, happy to have a phone call or a video call, or see you on campus starting in January.
Hey everyone, I'm Yvette. I've been your advisors for more than 10 years, and then I'm so happy that Laura joined us and taking care of math and statistics. And yeah, so if you have any questions related to CS, you can still talk to me, or like Math 102 CS required courses, you can also contact me. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get started. This is what we're going to be covering, and there'll be a Q&A afterwards. Like Miriam said, there's a bunch of acronyms and options that you have that you may be vaguely aware of, you may be informed about, but have some more niche questions. And we're going to try to lay out the differences between some things that are sort of similar, right? It's like, it's not just, one does not just drop a course. There are many things to consider. It depends on what sort of course it is, what your program requirements are, what your intentions are after. There's lots of things to consider when you're deciding what to do. So yeah, you can see here we're going to talk about dropping, credit, no credit, something called late withdrawal, second attempt for credit, which I think we all agree can be kind of confusing. So we'll try to present that as simply as we can. There's various petitions and accommodations that you can apply for. We'll touch on academic offenses and how that factors into these things, and then discuss some course related stuff, like ways that you can, take a different course if you failed, or options for what to do if you do have to drop something. And then, like I said, we'll have Q&A. And it looks like people are, Akira and Miriam and stuff are handling the questions in the chat. But you can ask questions in the chat while we go. You can also save them for after. And then, like Miriam said, there's Slido And this QR code and link and stuff appears on all the slides, so don't worry about the fact that I'm moving past it, but you can open that up or scan with your phone or whatever you need to. So we'll just start with the simplest thing. And I'll just mention that, well, I've been faculty advisor for a couple of years. I was just an ordinary professor before that, and I did not have to interact with any of these sorts of fine details. And so I've had to learn a lot about it. But I'm really glad that Laura and Yvette are here, because I'll present the basics and then they're going to make sure I don't lie to you. And probably be the ones who will answer more of the questions than I will, but I'll do my best. So dropping a course. First of all, the fall deadline is November 10th, which is really soon. So if you're considering dropping a course, you still have a bit of time to think about it, but it is coming up soon. If you're taking a course at a different campus, they have different deadlines, and the deadlines are listed on the slide there at the bottom. So you can go check that out. You can't get a refund anymore, but I guess the benefit of dropping is that it's not on your transcript, it doesn't go in your CGPA, and you can do as much of that as you want, I suppose. If you're taking a Y course, though there aren't that many in MCS, but you could be taking other Y courses, you can still get a partial refund. You obviously don't get any credit, right? So just like that's what disappears from your transcript means here. But so it's like you never took it. Some special considerations: if this is something for post or graduation, then obviously you have to retake it. You can't kind of get around either of those things. Yeah, there's other options. So this is just like the basic, dropping a course. But then there's some other options. So at this point, you know, we're after, or sorry, after the 10th, we'll be past the drop deadline. But you nonetheless might run into trouble. And there's all kinds of things that can happen, and you really shouldn't feel ashamed if, say, you start to struggle in a course. It could be because of various things going on in your life. You know, circumstances can change. Maybe you realize all of a sudden that you have to move to Canada, and that's distracting. I don't know why that would happen. At the drop of a dime, that would be weird. But all kinds of things can happen, and so. First of all, I just say don't, you know, be ashamed if like you or embarrassed if you have to do something like that. We are going to cover these different things, so don't worry about it. So anyhow, things can change. You might change your mind, etc., and dropping is no longer an option. So there's a few things, 4 things here that we're going to talk about: credit, no credit, late withdrawal. Sorry, I'm like actually a little sick myself right now. So if you notice me sort of struggling a bit, that's just like a sore throat and some congestion. Late withdrawal, LWD, and second attempt for credit, which if you sound that, you know, think through that, it's like, okay, you can retake a course for credit, but the details are tricky, so we have to get into that. And then there's various petitions for really sort of more extreme circumstances. So we'll get into that. Okay, so first of all, credit, no credit. You basically have until the end of the semester before the exams start. So that's December 7th. You obviously get credit if you pass the course that you choose to credit, no credit. This is a thing that you request for a given course. Like you're taking, you know, math 135 or something, or you're in some other course, though be careful, and you decide to credit, no credit. Well, what that means is if you pass it, then you get a CR as your grade, credit, and then you get that if you get 50% or more. And if you fail, so below 50%, then you get an NCR written on your transcript for the mark. And of course, you don't get any credit. In either case, it does not affect your CGPA. So this is a reason why people might, this is one reason why people might credit, no credit. It gets close to the exam, you're not confident that you can get a decent mark, and you need your CGPA to be a certain level. You want to maintain your 4.0 CGPA or what, let's be optimistic here. So you might choose to credit, no credit to make sure that it doesn't mess up your CGPA. Now, you have to be careful with which courses you do this to, because you can't do it, for instance, for courses that are required for your program of study, your programs of study. So that's going to cover a lot of things. And so you have to be careful with what you choose to credit, no credit. You can definitely come to Laura, myself, Yvette, etc. if you're not sure. So it's, or to the registrar, they also have advising, and they can let you know for sure, yes or no, if you can do this and it's something that you request. The credit still counts, so you can use this for instance, for distribution requirements. And it's a 2.0 credits max. Yvette, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that, Alex already mentioned, if the course is required by a program or subject post, for both entry requirements or completion requirements, once you credit, you get a credit. You cannot use it towards them to meet those requirements. For example, Math 136, it's a requirement to get into math major, and it's also a completion requirement as well. So if you do a credit, you request credit and credit on it, and you end up pass it and you get a credit for it, you cannot use it to meet those requirements. You have to do the course again.
Yeah, you'd have to
you'd
have to retake it
again. Yeah. In order to meet the entry, program entry and completion requirement.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about combining some of these things, but yeah, you got to be really careful with what you choose to credit, no credit. Yeah, what else? Different campuses have different deadlines, so just be aware of that. Again, the deadlines are there. Probably most of you are taking almost all or all UTM courses, but it's worth knowing for the future. Say, there's multiple hands up. Akira, Laura, I'm not sure who wants to jump in.
Yeah, I just wondered, a good question came up in the chat about credit, no credit, and how it relates to selecting post. So I don't know if Yvette, you want to address that. Is credit, no credit allowed within the minimum 4.0 credits as long as the student meets all the other entry requirements, or do they have to have 4.0 credits with numerical grades?
That is a good question. This year, we are more linear about it. So if you have about 3.5 U of T credits working towards your CGPA, we're okay that you use them to apply for, and then with another transfer credit or credit and credit courses, and total comes to 4 credits. 3.5 of them will can be a contribute to the CGPA calculation. It's okay this year. This will be the last year we allow that. And then starting next year, you do need to have 4 credits working towards the CGPA. That then you can apply for the to meet the requirement, the 4.0 requirement. So this is the last year that, for example, you have 3.5 courses, and then you credit 9 credit, 1 extra one, and total you have 4 credits. That is okay this year, but next year, you check the calendar next year. Then for students would like to apply, not next year, 2023, they come in 2022, and then they would apply for post 2023. We don't accept credit 9 credit courses to be added to the 4 credits.
Yeah, so the summary is yes this year for this next round of post entry.
Yeah.
Yes, you can do 1 course credit, no credit, and have it count towards the 4.0. The other stuff still applies, right? That if it's a program entry requirement, like you need an 80 and something, well, don't credit, no credit it, just do something else. Akira, your hand was up. Was that your question?
Yeah, small caveat. If you need a course, not necessarily for the grade, but you need it just as a prerequisite for some other course that you want to take, you can still credit, no credit it.
Absolutely.
And it can be used for prerequisite purposes. And sometimes that's useful because you don't need it for your program, the prerequisite.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Okay, so so we'll keep going. Like the slide says, you can consider dropping if it's before the drop deadline, or using late withdrawal, which we're going to talk about next. If you're going to fail and it's one of these important courses. So let's talk about late withdrawal. So this is another option that you have up until the exam period. So December 7th to be precise. Again, it's similar to dropping. This time though, it like credit, no credit, it appears on your transcript. So it'll say LWD on the transcript. But again, like credit, no credit, it won't have an effect on your GPA. And it's like dropping, but they record it. It's recorded on your transcript. No credit awarded. And you can do this, in your lifetime at U of T for six half courses, 3.0 credits. Okay, so that's again another thing that you'd have to request, and you can see that it's subtly different from simply dropping, but again, dropping stops being an option soon, and so then you're left with things like credit, no credit, and late withdrawal. And we're going to talk about second attempt for credit, but that's a slightly different thing. Yeah, there's lots of great questions flying by in the chat. I'm just assuming people will alert me if there's something again that we should deal with. And I mean, I guess I'm not going to spend too much more time on late withdrawal. It's basically like drop the default drop option after the drop deadline. It's kind of like dropping, but it still says it's on there. Yeah. So keep going. So here's one of the trickiest ones. So now we're talking about like retaking a course. We're kind of out of the realm of dropping with second attempt at credit, because the assumption here is that you've passed a course and want to retake it, but like replace the original outcome with a new outcome. So like you got 52, but you needed a 60, whatever it is. Then you might want to use second attempt at credit to make your newest attempt count. You can do this for up to 2 courses, so 1.0 credits throughout the time at U of T. And you can do it for any course at all, including post requirements, anything you want. So, and I would say that's one of that would be a common use, right? Like you need such and such a mark in math 136. And like I said, you get 51, you pass it, it's on your transcript as having passed it. And if you, the only drawback I would say is just that you use them up, like you only get 2 for your whole time, right? And that there's some paperwork to do it. So say you get 51 in math 136 and you're trying to get into the math major. Well, you've got math 136 on your transcript, and it's not good enough to get into the program. So you might retake the course, but you want, and say you get 65, you want that second attempt to be the one that counts. And you want that one to be the one that counts towards your CGPA. And you want the previous one not to count. So the word that is used is extra. Extra is added to your transcript on courses that you take more than once, or that there's various other reasons why you could get extra. Like say you took math 135 here, and then you took math 130 A35 or whatever it's called at Scarborough or something. Then yeah, they're not literally the same course, but the most recent one would be marked extra and won't count. If you do second attempt for credit, then the first one will be marked extra instead of the second one. That's the basic idea. You can't use SAC if you fail. So it has to be that you've passed both times, right? Like you get a 51 and a 52. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but like a 51 and a 62, whatever it is. And so neither attempt can be a failed attempt. Yeah, those are sort of the basics. I mean, I think there are some subtleties there. Yeah, for instance, if you didn't notice in the chat, Mateus asked if you can do it after you get your second grade, like the grade for the second course. And the answer is no. You have to get the SAC set up, the second attempt for credit set up before you know the mark for your second course. So Charshi, I hope I'm answering or saying your name right. What happens if you do fail course? I assume Charshi means you set up SAC for your course and then you fail it. I think it just it doesn't count as an SAC, but Yvette, this is where I don't want to lie. Do you know the answer? Yvette or Laura, do you know the answer to that? You set up SAC for your second, you've passed 136, you got 51, and then you request SAC for your second attempt at Math 136, and then you fail at that time. What happens to the SAC? Yeah, Yvette.
I think then the fail one will count. So, but I assume that, but we can double check with office registrar because you already requested, right? You don't know so that's tricky part about it. You request SAC before you write a final, in between courses during the courses, so you have no idea, and you end up, you get lower mark or you fail the course. I think the second one will count towards the CGPA no matter what. But we can double check with the office registrar. That's my understanding.
Yeah, so I guess that would be a potential downside. People are asking questions which are answered in the next slide. So you certainly, to use SAC, have to have your mark. You have to have already passed it. So you definitely will have your mark for that. You would be requesting it while you're repeating the course. So again, in this scenario, you've got a 51 in Math 136, but you need a 60 to get into the math major, let's say. And so you're retaking it. If this is after having gotten your mark back for the first time. All right, so just what about just general repetition of a course? So this isn't something that you do while you're first taking the course. So like, again, if you're taking 136 right now and you think you're not going to do well, this isn't really something you have to worry about right now. But it's worth understanding how it works. And again, you can retake any course you want. Yvette, did you have your hand up, or is that from before?
Yes, so it's quite clear in the slides, but I just want to emphasize because it's kind of tricky. Like, SAC could be complicated and there's misunderstanding there, like students usually sometimes understand them wrong. Like, second attempt is just like you mentioned, you already passed it once and then you want to do a course again to meet some other requirements, either for grade school, either for program entry. In order to do that, if you already passed the course, you have a mark for your first one, you need to request the exceptional form, enrollment exception form to be enrolled in a course. Only the office or registrar can add you to the course. If you repeat it, you already passed it, you cannot do it through Rose Acorn. You have to make the petition to have them to add you. And then there's also a deadline. There's also some deadline that you can start to request to add a course. You cannot do it like, at the first beginning. You have to wait to make the request to add to those course. And then if there's space available, whatever, that you can be added. So that's the first step. And then secondly, you need to petition again to for SAC for the second time to be count towards the CGPA. So for example, I just have a student email me today. The student got 56 in 148 and then do it again, repeated it again, and then got 92. But the second time didn't count towards the CGPA because he didn't request for SAC. So make sure, you know, there's 2 requests. First, petition to officer register to be added to the course. Second, you have to petition to, you know, for SAC for the second time to count. Yeah. And then, and then the other thing very important, especially for CS students, because CS students, we have a high cutoff for MAT 102 and CSE 148. Usually those are the 2 courses that a lot of people, they repeat them. And keep in mind, you can only repeat a course, a past course once. If you failed it a second time, that's it as well. If the second time, you know, you couldn't meet the requirement or you get lower marks, then that's it. You cannot have a third chance to do the course and try to meet a cutoff. So you have to be very careful. You know, there's only 2 times that you can take a course. Only 1 chance to repeat a past course. So I just want to emphasize that. Yeah.
Okay, so Mariam also has her hand.
Yeah, I get this a lot from students when they're like just thinking about repeating courses. I just wanted to make sure this actually still holds, that if you repeat a course, but regardless of whether or not you SAC it or you do SAC it and the first grade is higher, for the post purposes, you guys look at the higher grade regardless of which one is extra, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So, you know, we just take the higher one. Doesn't matter whether it's first one or second one. We don't take the average. We look at the first one. Yeah.
The highest one.
And the other thing is that because the cutoff come up kind of late in May, and so students will finish the course, say, you know, MAT 102 in spring, and then they get a mark, say they get 75, but they're worried that, you know, maybe the cutoff would be 80, so they are not sure. In this case, they can enroll in summer courses, and once the cutoff come up, if they meet a cutoff, they can just drop out of the summer course.
Yeah, so you're sort of setting up a backup plan.
Yes, yeah, because the timing, and then we couldn't come up with the cutoff before summer enrollments starts, or so it's good to enroll in a course, and then if you meet a cutoff, you're wondering if you meet a cutoff, then you can drop it.
Yeah. Okay, so we're kind of getting into the weeds, but hopefully this is fairly understandable. There's lots of questions, and that makes sense. I think I've mentioned just about everything from this slide. Yeah, so like so what it's saying here about this enrollment exception form, that's what Yvette was saying about having the registrar add you to the course. So you have to fill a form, you can't just add yourself. Here, did you also want to jump in?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's still the case that you can only pass a certain course twice. So like, for example, CSE 148 or MAT 136, you're only allowed to have 2 passes, and then you can no longer take it.
Yeah.
You can only repeat a past course once.
Yeah, sorry, that's the terminology.
It's the same
total
thing,
passes. Yeah, like 2 total passes, and then
yeah,
you're locked in.
So I just wanted to kind of mention that to students, because often they come in, like sometimes it's better potentially to drop a course like the first attempt or something, instead of carrying through with the pass if they're only going to get like a 50 or a 60 and they need maybe like an 80. So if, you know, yeah, just so they know, you can only do that twice, and then you can no longer take that course again.
Yeah, so Kira's saying like a strategy to leave your options more open is if you think you're not going to get anywhere close to your cutoff for your CSE 48, for example, or your Math 102, these are like key courses, I guess, then a good option to consider is to drop it somehow. And then you will still have 2 pass attempts to hit the cutoff.
Actually, I don't think it's quite correct to say you can pass it twice. You can only have, how to say that? Take it one more time. So the second time, even if you failed it, that's it. So the second time, yeah. So you
drop it, but if you drop it, it's gone.
So if the first time you drop it,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Then you didn't use any of these two, right?
Exactly. That's
yeah. But you pass it,
then that's one of the two. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the two. The second time is second time, whether it's pass or fail.
Yeah, exactly.
Use it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So keep going. There's some ways to combine these. I think if you saw like the Instagram that MCSS put out, there were some like questions on there which are pretty sneaky. Akira, did you want to mention one of them, or do you have a question?
Yeah, I actually personally did one of these combinations. Nice. In my first year, I took CSE 108 for the purposes of CS program, and I did really bad on the midterm. And so I came out of it and I kind of was really demotivated to do any of the rest of the course. So when I was on vacation in New Jersey before exams, I just CR'd the course, kind of forgot about it. And in the subsequent semester, I retook it. And since I knew my grade was going to be much better, I used SAC, so that would be applied for my CGPA.
Okay. Yeah. So hopefully you caught that. You used both credit, no credit, and SAC on CSE 108. Yeah. And this might be the kind of thing where we leave some of it up to questions, or maybe Miriam, did you want to try to address some of the questions that were on the Instagram?
I mean, we made those off. I'm pretty sure no one has asked those, but a couple that I do want to mention is, like, for example, we keep telling you can take courses at other campuses or like take equivalent courses. You can't use SAC on those. If you want to use SAC on a course, it needs to be the exact same course code, for example. Another thing that is good to mention is with SAC, like Akira said, and NCR, the purpose of SAC, like even if he didn't NCR it, his GPA would be the same because of SAC. So the purpose of NCR is to just hide your first grade. So if you don't care about that, don't waste your NCR that way. Just things like that. Again, like if you have some like crazy idea and like you want to ask like whether or not I can use like LWD, SAC, and like all of this on the same course, just ask us. Join the MCSS Discord. You can always ask us questions in there, and also all our good academic advisors and faculty advisors.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I'll keep going, but yeah, if you have any, like Miriam said, combinations you want to consider and ask us about now, then yeah, feel free to, and we'll see what we can do. So we're sort of moving on here. So there's various reasons why you might need some kind of accommodation. I mean, there's of course accessibility accommodations, and you should obviously reach out to accessibility if you want to set something up through them, and you shouldn't be shy about that or try to leave it to the last minute. It sucks when people email and it's like too late, they've missed the deadlines and stuff, and they could otherwise have gotten extra time. Okay, Kira, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Just to kind of address one of the big ones I just went back to the Instagram just to see what the questions were. One of them did kind of apply, but I don't know if it still is. If you take CSE 148 at another campus, can we still use that for UTM post, or is it completely gone as an option?
Yvette can answer that, but I think the answer is it's gone.
Yes, it's gone. So we only accept 148H5 for our CS programs, including CS minor. So everything, we don't accept 148H1 from downtown anymore, and we only accept Math 132 H5 to apply for CS programs. It's gonna be appear in our calendar next year, but we're already enforcing it. Yeah.
So getting back to, thanks Yvette. So getting back to accommodations, again, accessibility is one thing that's just like a background thing that you should get on as soon as possible and not feel shy about, just do it. But there's other things that could come up in your life, like I said, like all of a sudden having to move to Canada, or a loved one could become ill, etc. And certainly if it's just like assignments and stuff, then you should talk to your instructor, or in a big course, your coordinator. And if it's the final exam, then that you can petition to the registrar to take the deferred exam, or even defer it beyond the ordinary deferred period, like further into like the next semester. When you are going to miss a deadline for something, you've missed the credit deadline, or the late withdrawal deadline, then it's, I guess, possible that they might go back and help you, and you can ask the office of the registrar to do that. But like it says, don't get your hopes up. It is really important to get the petition or form. It might just be a form that you have to fill out in before the deadline. I can be quite strict with that kind of thing.
Alex?
Oh, yeah.
If I just jump in. So the term petition came up before when we were talking about SAC and course enrollment exception. So just want to contrast that. There's request forms that don't need to go through rigorous decision making versus a petition, which is a little bit more of a formal term the Office of the Registrar uses. And just keep in mind these examples here. The fourth bullet is sound advice, because the idea is they're all reviewed on a case per case basis, and they're based on their merit. So in many cases, you are going to need to provide evidence or supporting documentation for your petition. So that's just something to keep in mind versus a more transactional form, which is SAC or repeating a course.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Yeah, and the word petition is used broadly for other stuff too. Like you might petition for some broader exception, like if you end up at risk of going on academic probation, you can petition to not to have some exception made, and various other things. There's various petitions you can make, and same with you missing your final exam, that kind of thing. And then not quite the last topic, we're also going to talk about options for other courses you can take, but we're going to talk a bit about academic offenses, and we have and Laura is an expert in this, and we've all gotten a bit more, all of us on the department side have gotten a bit more familiar with the academic offense process in the last couple of years, sadly. But how does it affect some of the things that we've been talking about so far? So if you are suspected of an offense by an instructor, then what happens is they request from Laura or Yvette a GWR be put on your record. It's a temporary status, but it stops you, for instance, from dropping the course or maybe applying one of these previous options to the course. So first of all, so that's what that first bullet is referring to. If you have a GWR, or which represents an ongoing academic offense case, then you can't simply drop the course. And I guess technically, if you think you might be suspected of an AO, but the instructor hasn't talked to you yet and hasn't done a GWR, and you drop it trying to like wiggle your way out, you can be added back in. It's not like if you sneak out before the GWR gets put on that you have gotten around it. You can be added back to the course and then GWR'd. So there isn't some loophole like that. Anyhow, so The academic offense process is complicated, and it depends on a lot of things, like the weight of the assignment or assessment that you're suspected of committing an offense on, or let's just say one is suspected of committing an offense on. If it's 10% or less, it's handled differently than if it's 10% or more. In any case, though, if it's your first offense, typical penalties are sort of in this third bullet, like getting a 0 on that assessment. It could be as bad as getting 0 on the course. Typically, though, for a first offense, it won't be worse than that. It is possible to be worse than that if you keep appealing. Like there's various stages that you can go through. You can take it all the way to the final stage, which is the tribunal. It's across the tri-campus, and various sorts of things can happen at that stage. So you have to be really careful about simply fighting it for the sake of fighting it. It's a different system of justice than the regular system of justice. And I'm sort of half nervously joking about it because it can feel kind of unfair. It's the only requirement that needs to be met is a balance of probabilities. So for those of you who've maybe watched some law shows or something, it's not the level of evidence that is not beyond a reasonable doubt that you committed an academic offense. It's on a balance of probabilities. That is it likely that you didn't? And what I mean here is when it goes past the professor. So the professor might meet with you if they suspect you committed an offense and then decide that they're going to drop it. And at that point, it just is gone. The GWR will eventually disappear, blah, 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 and it's gone. But if it continues past there, other people will be looking at it, typically, say for a final exam. And the burden of proof, if you want, is it just has to be that they think that it's more likely than not that you did in fact commit an offense at this point. So you have to think really carefully if you're in that situation, and there's a lot sort of more advising that one can get if you are at that stage. But that's sort of the quick rundown. Just don't get yourself into this situation. Do your best not to. And yeah, it can be especially hard in this online setup. Laura, I think you wanted to do that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alex. I think it does sound like a really scary realm, but I've noticed Miriam addressed it quite well in the chat. If you don't know, ask. So we understand maybe as first year or even second year students not having encountered this, the code itself, which is the piece of policy which governs academic offenses for graduate students, undergrad students, and faculty at U of T, is not the most stimulating piece of policy to read. So read your syllabus very carefully. Pay attention to any instructions for assessments that are in Corcus or that are provided in your lecture notes, and follow the rules. So, if something doesn't pass the smell test, then don't hesitate to talk to the course coordinator. Maybe your TA or the instructor is a perfect source as well. I think that's the best way to stay out of trouble. And I think there's a lot of really wise upper year students in this student society, the MCSS too. So they're a resource as well. They may not have gone through the process themselves, or they may not wish to share that with you. But if you're not sure, ask. Don't. And sometimes the worst decisions can be made in moments of desperation or poor time management. So it's always better to ask for an extension. The worst that can happen is you have to take a late penalty on something, but don't go down the road of exercising dishonesty in order to get something in on time. Do not hesitate to ask for consideration if you're in a bind.
Yeah, that's really good advice about how, yeah, I think research has shown that most of the time this kind of thing happens in the kind of situation that Laura is saying. There's a last minute scenario and people reach for something and they don't put enough thought into what the consequences could be. Anyway, yeah, but again, maybe what I was saying came across really as really sort of terrifying. But I think some people some students I've interacted with who've gotten into an academic offense case have not really been informed about what their rights are and how the setup works. And so hopefully it helps. There's a few more questions here that are addressed on the slides, like can I drop a course if they're investigating? I had already addressed that no, you can't. Can I split into post? Yes. But what happens is your case to be added to post will be resolved once the GWR is resolved. So it says ask the CS faculty advisor, because that's like the typical thing that's been happening is somebody might have a GWR in a course like 102, Math 102 or CSE 148, and you just sort of have to wait until the GWR has been resolved. And FYI, again, not to scare you, but given that there's been so many cases over the last couple of years, it can take a long time. And we've seen students like who are now still with GWRs from 2020. It might partly be because they have been pushing the case to like tribunal, but it can just take a long time. Miriam?
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to address the same thing. Like, it is true that once the GWR disappears, you can use these options of like dropping LWD, etc. But essentially, the GWR stays until after the term if it's like a serious case. Like, if it's, I had a friend who wasn't even guilty. Her partner in an assignment cheated, and she got caught for it because they worked on the assignment together. Her GWR eventually disappeared, but it wasn't until after the course. And so it wasn't possible for her to use any of these options. So yes, technically you can, but you can't.
Yeah, thanks, Miriam. Yeah. Effectively, just assume that any GWR you get will almost certainly last until after the semester, unless it's dropped by the professor, unless they decide to drop the case. Akira, did you also want to?
Yeah, just to share a bit of an anecdote. I know someone who, so I entered UTM in 2019, fall 2019. And because of the circumstances relating to COVID and stuff, I know someone who had to retake CC 148 in the fall 2020 term. So that's already a year late that they still haven't made the program that they're interested in making. Yeah. And it was just a small assignment. I think it was like it was worth like 2-3% or something. And then they were like, their friend was like, hey, mind if I just like quickly check your code just to make sure that, you know, mine is right or whatever. And again, not to like make you suspect your friends or anything, but if it's an individual assignment, it's an individual assignment. And they got suspected for an AO. The friend apparently copied like an entire swath of code. And I think only recently their GWR came off. So they're in their third year right now, and they're still trying to attempt to make, you know, the CS program of study, which is just to say, don't make an AO. It doesn't help anyone in the process, and it is a pain.
And don't do it to your friends. Don't ask for something you shouldn't be asking for. And if you ask for it and they give it to you, well, it's already a problem, but then you should not be doing this to your friend, right? Like, say you commit an academic offense by copying their code, you're putting them in the same boat as you are. Yeah, there's good questions in the chat, but I'll keep going. So there's a couple more bits here, and then we'll get to the Q&As if we have time. I don't. So say you drop a course, etc., and you want to retake it. What are some options? Depending on the course, it may be offered in the next semester. So if you drop a course now, it'd be offered in the winter. And then if you drop it in the winter, it might be offered in the summer. Just be aware that in the summer, there's sort of less options typically, especially for upper year courses. And even, for instance, Math 137, or 157, if you're taking them and dropped it, then you can take Math 137 at downtown, but not at UTM. So there's the summer is kind of a special case. There's less stuff offered, and some things are offered only in the fall or only in the summer. I mean, only in the spring. Yeah, I think the taking equivalent courses at other campuses, there was actually sort of a interesting period over the last year and a half where like you could take a course online and it'd be pretty convenient. But if you live near Scarborough or have a way to get there, then that could be an option to consider. And downtown is obviously even closer. Mary, did you want to comment?
Yeah, just because the slide is missing some information about the 135, 136 option. You can also take them both in summer at UTSG, because 135 is offered over the first 2 months and 136 is offered over the second 2 months. So that can also be an option if you drop 137, 157 really late and need to take calculus.
Yeah, you want to get your calc in before the start of second year. All the UTM summer courses are offered regular speed, so they take 4 months. But yeah, what Miriam is saying is that they do them double speed downtown. The exception is, I guess, Math 133, which maybe that doesn't apply to any of you. We do offer that double speed. That's a Y course. Okay, and then so maybe if you're still thinking about what you're going to take in the winter, I guess there's some courses that you might consider, like say if you want to get into stats, but you haven't done much stats, you might want to look at Stats 107. Like say you've just done no stats and you don't want to jump into one of the harder stats courses, you could start with that. Miriam, do you want to say something else?
Oh no, my hand's still up.
Oh, your hand is still up. Sorry. There's these are just a few instances of something that you could consider. For instance, if you want if you want a harder version of 230 CSC 236, you could take CSC 240 downtown. Sort of a more like enriched version of the course. If you're taking, say, linear algebra, say this semester with me, then but you want to do more proofs, you want to be doing the proofs, then you might be interested in Math 240. There is some weird stuff with 223 and 240 and how it all fits together, but it's not atypical that somebody takes 223 and then realizes that they actually want to jump up to the other sort of track, the 240, 247 track. And these courses are great. They're smaller and they're much more advanced. And if you say have decided you want to be a math specialist or major, you might consider sort of switching tracks to that. Laura?
If it's okay, I'm actually going to rewind a bit back to SAC. I just got an answer from the OR about that what if scenario. You request SAC on a course, but it actually doesn't go as planned. So the worst case scenario in that you fail that course that you requested SAC on, I'm told that the OR will actually reverse the request. So it doesn't negatively impact you.
That's I don't want to say a rare instance of leniency, but that does seem.
Yeah, that's really good to know. So, if they fail the second time, they don't count the second time. They reverse it to use the first time, right?
Yeah, they go back to, and I'll just reiterate again, if all things aside, if SAC, so prior to 2019, before SAC existed, if you took the course a second time with a course enrollment exception form, so with permission, then by default, that second attempt would be marked extra and would not count towards your GPA. So in the case of them being lenient and reversing the SAC request because you failed the second time, then they would just go back to that default, meaning the second attempt would be marked extra and that failure would not impact your GPA.
And student doesn't need to make requests, and it's going to be automatic, right?
It sounds like it's automatic, yeah. But I mean, I would say as a student, whenever somebody says something's automatic, that's transactional in a big place like U of T, just keep an eye on things. If something seems like it's not going in an unexpected way, don't hesitate to ask the Office of the Registrar. Sorry about to change direction, Alex.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I think we're sort of at the end of the main slides. We're going to move into like a Q&A. But yeah, the speaker notes say to shill Math 240. So I'll just say Math 240 is great. The special courses at UTM are awesome, in part because you have great instructors who care about it, but also because the class sizes are smaller. and should be a lot of fun. Yeah, you don't have to want to be a math specialist to take, for instance, Math 240, Math 247. Yeah, I recommend it. Okay, so we've been sort of doing Q&A all the way through, but like if we want to switch to a different format or.
Yeah, Alex, can you share the Slido screen now instead? Just copy one of the links from the slides and.
Okay. So if you do second attempt for credit, do you get the credit again? No, you only get credit once for a unique course. Can I like count that?
I don't think we have permission. Brian,
Oh.
Can you like get rid of the questions we answer?
Boom. If I have marks for 2.5 credits and 1 credit is a transfer credit, that's unusable for post. Can you still apply for post? Well, first of all, you need 4 credits, and I think you can get like a half credit, 0.5 credit. That counts. Maybe Yvette, can you clarify? I think that's what this person is asking. But it sounds like they only have 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, this person wouldn't because they don't have 4.0, but let's say there was a person where 2.0 of the 4.0 credits were transfer event, would they still be able to apply for post?
Yeah, so we mentioned about this before, right? You need 4 credits to apply for post minimum. So this year we're more linear about this. We require at least 3.5 U of T credits, and then the other half can come from transfer credits or credit and credit course. So that's kind of this. Yeah, and then next year, we'll enforce the 4 credit U of T courses.
Yeah, and I'll just say like the basic idea here is that we need to see how you do in our courses, like to understand how to let you in to a program, unless it's a type 1 program. But so yeah, this person would not be able to do that. But I think that typically you get here, even if you have transfer credits, you can use those as prereqs to take further courses, right? So those courses would be the courses that would count towards the 4.0 credits. Okay, so maybe moving on. How would I switch majors? What does the process look like? I'm not familiar with what it literally looks like, but I assume it all just happens through Acorn. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's really easy. I think it's especially for anthropology, it's a type 1 major. So you just go on Acorn, you add anthropology, you drop computer science, and then you're done.
Yeah, if it's not.
But if it's a type 2 or type 3, you need to wait until the program choosing time, which is like at the end of the year or at the end of summer.
Yeah, so there's 2 post rounds. So 2 rounds for getting into post for type 2 and type 3. So again, type 1 is you're just in, you can go in, you can go out, whatever. Type 2, type 3, you're basically applying to be allowed to add it. Things like math major, CS major, etc. CS majors type 3, math majors type 2.
I just want to comment on subject posts. Excuse me, Alex.
That's fine. Yeah.
You do want to make sure there's things, minimums and maximums to keep in mind. So Acorn is finicky in that it will need you to be in a minimum program combination for you to continue to be able to enroll in courses. So don't drop down to below the minimum amount of programs. For example, just being in an anthropology minor would not be sufficient. Also, you are only allowed to be in a maximum of 3 active programs. While you can have a bunch of requested programs, I think the number's pretty high, it can be 5 to 10, you can only be active in 3. So just when you're shifting things around, you just want to make sure that you don't jeopardize your ability to continually enroll in courses at the appropriate time.
Yeah, that's a great point. We can probably move on from that. So the next one is, if I'm taking math, but I am taking math 102 right now. If I don't meet the program requirements, can I SAC it in the summer? No, I believe the answer is you have to choose to SAC it while you're taking it. But my question here is, what I would want to know more about this particular student, because it's the fall right now, and if they're in their first year, then there's no SACing anything right now because you haven't passed anything. Marian, did you?
Yeah, I think they're just confused about when they're supposed to choose the SAC option. So during your first attempt, which is your Math 102 taking right now, you don't need to choose the SAC option. You don't need to do anything. So you finish Math 102, you finish your winter semester. When the summer semester starts, you fill out the enrollment exception form and enroll in Math 102 again. And then during the summer, when you're taking Math 102, before the deadline for SAC, you pick the SAC option. So again, during your first time, you don't need to do anything. You can even wait until you get your grade for the first time and then decide, okay, do I need to retake this or not? Also, I'm going to mention this again because I keep students keep getting worried about SAC. Most of the students I've seen use SAC is because I don't know, they have a 79 in Math 102 and they need an 80, or sorry, in CSC 148 and then need an 80, and then they use SAC on it. Just wanted to let you know that you don't need to use SAC for post. They will just count your higher grade. You can keep your SAC if you want. SAC is for keeping your GPA high. So if you get a 50 and then you want to get an 80 next time, and you can make the 80 be the one count. But if the difference between 79 and 80, I personally wouldn't use SAC on that.
It's not going to affect your GPA much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the next question is, why credit, no credit if you're going to SAC? Doesn't SAC hide the first grade? Oh, I think they're talking about Akira's example with CSC 108. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the question.
I can just comment on this, the difference between marking something credit, no credit, and where that extra notation would go in the case of not doing or doing SAC. When something is marked extra, the actual numerical grade is not invisible on the academic record. It just means that it doesn't calculate in the GPA. But when you select credit, no credit by the appropriate deadline, you're basically asking to be evaluated on the basis of pass or fail. So you do not want a numerical grade to show. So credit, no credit does conceal your grade if you think of it that way.
Okay. So the next person says, my first attempt for Math 102 may not be enough for post. I want to continue the course, so I learn more for the summer. In worst case, if I no credit it, can I still SAC? So you can't SAC something that you don't pass. That's the idea. Your second attempt for credit, you use on a course that you've passed in some form.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hopefully that answers. I mean, I get the idea. You want to stay in the course and absorb some of it to make your next attempt better. But yeah, no credit is a no credit. How do we know if a course is offered in the summer before dropping it? Okay, well, you can ask an advisor, your faculty advisor, and I can tell you that Math 102 will be offered in the summer. You can ask me about other courses and I'll tell you yes or no whether they're offered. The problem is they haven't even requested the timetable from us yet for the summer. But on the other hand, there's a typical list of courses that we will make for the summer for, let's say, for math. And I'm not familiar with stats and CS courses, so you'd ask the faculty advisor or Yvette or Laura.
Or you can go to the online timetable. I think the summer one's still there, that you can use that for reference, last summer's course.
Yeah, you can also use I think I mentioned this summer, but I forgot. Use the syllabi archive to see what typically is offered. Even if you need to see previous years, you can. And for downtown, they actually have all their old timetables up from like 2015, so you can check what they typically offer.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a guarantee. If it's like a niche course, you might want to double check, like something that you're concerned may or may not be offered. But yeah, most years we just copy the same courses that we offered last summer. So I'll focus on the questions on Slido, but I guess there's other questions being asked down there. So somebody else asked, what if you want to change a program from major to specialist? I think the requirements are the same, but that's a tricky one because there's like a fixed number of seats. So I actually don't know the answer. Yvette, do you know, like, can they just switch if they're already in the major, CS major, to switch to the specialist or vice versa?
So usually we allow students to get downgrade from specialist to major, and then they can do that before they graduate. So there's no rush to do that. If you want to downgrade, email me, and then I do it for you. But, you know, move from major to specialist is a bit tricky. You have to apply again and then meet the requirement. So if you're a first year student, if you can get in specialist, then maybe it's better to get into a specialist now. And then later on, if you want to drop down to major, you still have that option. Yep.
Thanks. So something about program types. Oh, where can you check? So you can look on the academic calendar at UTM for any given program. Like I'll just put the link to, for instance, the CS programs. So they'll say, I'll just put it on my screen here. So this is like the computer science specialist, and it says, yeah, enrollment is limited. Here are the entry requirements. Here are the entry requirements that are like, this is what they're going to be. Talks about the fees, what courses you're supposed to do, and so on. Versus something like the minor, right? Computer science minor, 4.0 credits. There's no limitation on the enrollment, other than just, you know, stuff like this. Hopefully that answers the program types question. Yeah, and this is just the like academic calendar site, so it's a useful site to have. You can go and find out information about programs. So if I want to go see about like math programs, I can see, you know, that yeah, there's enrollment and there's the restriction, limited enrollment, there's restriction, etc., etc. And Yvette put a link to the program guide chat here. That's this thing, and it details, yeah, the types of programs, the fact that you need 4 credits, type 2, type 3, and then yeah, there's some general information about programs like what's type 2 versus type 3. So like a math major is type 2, as long as you meet the cutoff you're in. CS major is type 3. If it, they can only accept enough people, or they can only accept a certain number of people. Okay. Next question is, what should you do if you get 79 in CS 138 and post requirement for CS 138 is an 80? I mean, this is a tricky question. Like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So we're very strict about that. If you get a 79 and the requirement, the cutoff is 80, you'll need to do it again. It didn't meet the requirement. So even 1 mark off is, you know, means that you have to do the course again.
If you fail math 102, what are your options? Yeah, I mean, you should consider retaking it. It's offered in the winter and the summer. So if you're failing it, if you fail it in the fall, you can retake it in the winter. Yeah, I mean, don't feel too bad. I mean, it is a hard course, but it's really important for all the MCS programs. It's a prereq for like everything, and it's a requirement on all our like type 2 and type 3 programs. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then yeah, you can always consider some of these other options that we talked about today. Hopefully that answers that question. If you don't make CS post, is it a realistic option to transfer to another university? Well, you can always apply again, first of all. So, but if maybe you mean if you've applied again and still don't make it in, Yvette, did you want to?
Yes, actually, this is a very good question, because a lot of students might, so many students try to get into computer science, and then not everybody can get in because it's type 3, and then we have limited number of students we accept every year. So I mean, transfer to another university, it's an option. However, we suggest students to consider alternative programs. In order to graduate, you need at least one specialist, 2 major, 1 major, 2 minors. So if you couldn't get into the CS major, you can consider CS minor. At the same time, you do need at least 1 major in order to graduate. So you can consider other majors, like, you know, you're able to get into like math major, statistics major, economic, or CCIT. We have a website that, you know, give you the suggestions of the alternative programs that you can take. So by doing that, say you have a major in economic and minor in computer science and minor in math, you can still graduate and have a HBSc degree. So you have options there. And with CS minor, you can take a whole bunch of CS courses. You can take all the first year, all the second year courses, and you can take up to 1.5 CS 300 and 400 level courses. So you can still, you know, have the chance to take a lot of CS courses. Yeah. So those are the options. Yeah.
So the next question is, if I drop a course and then I take it again and end up dropping it again, I won't be stopped from taking the, yeah, dropping is never did. But dropping before the drop deadline, like not the withdrawal or any of the other things. If you literally drop it before the drop deadline, it's gone. And then this last one, could you use SAC on a course that you already used SAC on? Like a TAC, a third attempt at credit? Or I'm not sure what that would look like, but so remember, for SAC, it's you passed it once, and then presuming you're gonna pass it again, you can use SAC to have that mark count for your CGPA. So say you did that, and you replace the first one with your second mark, and the first one was marked extra, you've already now taken it twice. So you literally can't take it again. So there's no further like relevance for SAC for that course. So does SAC hide the first attempt? I don't believe so. I think it just makes it count extra, and then the new one is the one that counts for CGPA, but the mark will still show. It's credit, no credit that hides, that like masks the grade. Or late withdrawal, I guess. Don't have a grade. Okay, so the one after that is, would it be beneficial to do a major in math and minor in CS and stats? So CS major is impossible. I would say that's definitely a common option. And if you're taking other courses for distribution or requirements, you might find some other minor that you're interested in if you're not interested in a math minor, a stats minor, or like you could do a stats major, a minor in CS and another minor in something else. Yeah, so I think the programs work well together because some courses will count across multiple programs for prerequisites and for program requirements.
And I like to point out, some students might not know, if you have a 2 minor in science and 1 major in, say, humanity or social science, you can still get a HBSc degree. So I think it's kind of good to know, say you have a minor in computer science, minor in math, but you have a major in English, you can still be able to get an HBSC degree.
And I have a BA, if that's relevant. You can also have a BA and do other sciencey stuff. But yeah, I didn't know that. I would have assumed it would have gone with your major specialist. So if somebody was thinking about transferring to a different university, would it be best to talk to the academic advisor? Yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of advice you're looking for. If you want advice on how to make it happen, well, then that's maybe something you would go to the registrar and then go to the other university's advisors for. If you're just trying to decide whether or not that's the move for you, then definitely you should talk to an advisor, faculty advisor, etc. Other folks at MCSS, like other students, upper year students, like they can give you an idea of like what would be the benefit or downside of such a thing. Are there more spaces in CS specialist over CS major? I actually don't know the answer to that. Yvette, do you know? The number of spaces in the major CS major versus CS specialist. I think it's determined each year by the faculty advisor and other CS people, but I don't know whether they tie the amounts together. It's this question here: are there more spaces in CS specialist and CS major, or are they the same?
Okay, I think we can wrap it up here.
Okay.
Alex, can you go back? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah,
okay.
it is like Laura had to leave, so we didn't really get to say goodbye. So
Whoops, shoot, sorry.
Yeah, I also
like
have to go myself. Yeah, let's take that question and then we can
sure.
go.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no specific spaces for major or specialist. We took them kind of similar, the same. If the student admitted to major and specialist, we count it as one spot.
Yeah, there's like X spots, and then people just apply for the two different things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Many are put in. Yeah, so it might change. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So yeah, we'll end it there. Thank you everyone for all these great questions. Miriam, did you want to take us over?
Yeah, can we go to the last slide? Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. I'm glad the session was helpful. This is actually relevant to one of the questions in chat. So if you have some general course enrollment / finance / petition questions, I think Office of the Registrar is the place to ask that. Unfortunately, they're very slow with answering questions. So if you need some immediate help that upper years and stuff can help, you should ask us, join the MCSS Discord server, and yeah, ask questions there. And for like MCS related questions, Laura is the undergrad advisor for math and stats. Yvette is the undergrad advisor for CS. Alex here is the faculty advisor for math. We also have Dan Zingaro, who's the faculty advisor for CS, and Luai Alabadi, who's the faculty advisor for the stats program. So these are your points of contact in MCS. And again, like I said, join the MCSS Discord server. I also got a lot of questions about like, how can I join MCSS? How can I join the MCSS team? So again, first step, join the Discord. Second step, email me or DM me on Discord. And just say that you want to join the MCSS team. There are a couple opportunities available that I'd be happy to connect you with. But yeah, that's it about MCSS. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you so much to our amazing advisors for helping hold this session. And the recording of this will be posted on YouTube and the MCSS YouTube channel. Subscribe and like. Yeah. Watch our induction video. That is true. Watch our induction video.
Do you have the link handy? I'm sure it was posted at some point earlier, but
yes,
it's probably easy
YouTube.
To find, yeah.
Okay, cool. Any last words, last pieces of advice from our advisors for the rest of the semester?
Take it easy on yourself. Don't try not to put too much pressure on yourself and compare yourself to others. Just, you know, do your best. And lots of people are in sort of extenuating and unusual circumstances. So, you know, you might be under a lot of pressure to do well, but even if you don't, or you're not doing well right now, it doesn't mean you won't later, or that there won't be like a good option for you going forward. So yeah, just look, you know, try to talk to other students, and barring that, you know, come to faculty advisor, come to academic advisors, and, you know, try to make a plan if you're struggling. Yvette, did you have any? I don't know, she threw that out to both of us, so I didn't know.
Yeah, so I just post my email address and Laura's email address through the chat. If you have any questions, you can email us. Yeah.
Thank you so much again. I will stop recording here.